Today I'm going to talk to you about Linux on Windows, really Windows subsystem for Linux, why it's so powerful, why I use it in my own workflow as a security researcher, and just, a kind of a brief overview of all the different things you can do on Windows subsystem for Linux. This is not a super in-depth dive, but I really want to show you like why this is so important and even just how to set it up moving forward. And there's a lot of different ways to set up an attack box, but basically, an attack box is it's a machine, right, with that you use for security testing. So, for example, myself, I use Kali Linux. That's a Linux distribution that comes stock with a lot of different security tools and things that you can install. Another well-known like security research, offensive security Linux operating system is Parrot OS. If you've ever done anything with Hack the Box, amazing curriculum, amazing crew over at Hack the Box. So I personally use Kali. That's what I originally learned on. That's what I'm most comfortable with. You could even set up a box that's just Debian or Ubuntu and manually install the security tools that you want. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can virtualize, a Linux environment on your machine, on your computer, your laptop. You could also get a VPS, which is a virtual private server. I know Nahamsek, he actually shows how to set up a virtual private server in the cloud and set up an attack box there. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but basically, I like to use Windows subsystem for Linux. It keeps my stuff local and it lets me interact with the environment. And it's super, super. The integration with Windows is amazing. I love it. So, there are a lot of command line utilities and tools that are meant for security research. And being able to use scripting languages like Bash, you can't use Bash in a Windows environment like you can in a Linux environment. But this is also a really lightweight version. Okay, it's a lightweight version of Linux. Whoops, whatever, on your Windows device that can serve a lot of different purposes. A lot of tools, for example, like Nikto, which is a vulnerability scanner, was written to run in Linux, and it already comes installed in a Kali Linux distribution. There's no Windows equivalent, like Nikto. Nikto doesn't have a Windows version. So with Windows subsystem for Linux, there's no longer a need for a separate virtual machine through like VMware or VirtualBox. You can just do it right through Windows. So to show you real quick, right here, you can see what I've been looking at. But right there's Kali Linux. So in Windows, if you go to the Microsoft Store, you can literally just install Kali Linux as an app. You can look up Kali Linux. Okay. There are some things you have to do before you start using Windows subsystem for Linux. Windows 10 has already reached its end of life, so you should be using Windows 11 anyways if you are on a Windows machine. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull up. So yeah, you can see here that I'm on a Windows machine. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the command prompt and show you how to get Windows subsystem for Linux set up. So starting off, just make sure that you have 4 gigs of RAM. That's really important. The one thing that you need to do to be able to virtualize on your machine is go into the BIOS. So there are 2 main processors on the market. There's Intel and there's AMD. Okay. And in your BIOS, you're going to look for 2 different things. You're going to look for either Intel, whoops, that's not right, Intel VTX. Okay. Or you're going to look for AMD V. Okay. If you see either of those 2 things when you go into your BIOS settings, during startup, then that means that you can do virtualization on your computer. Your processor has that power, that ability. So you just have to enable it. Okay. After that, you can open up a PowerShell prompt and you need to go ahead. And obviously I've pulled my prompt over to the side so you guys don't see, sensitive information, but you're just going to type in WSL dash dash install. And that's going to install the most current latest version of Windows subsystem for Linux on your Windows environment. Okay. So after you install that, now I'm not going to run it because I already have it installed here. You can actually run WSL dash dash list dash dash online. And that command is actually going to list all the different Linux distributions that you have available to run on Windows to be able to install on your Windows machine. So right here, and you can tell I've got, the prompt pulled off to the side, but right here, you've got all these different versions of Linux. You've got Alma Linux, you've got Debian, you've got Fedora. I like Fedora. I've worked on Fedora. If you're familiar with the Red Hat Enterprise Edition of Linux, that's what Fedora is. It's a individual user version. There's Ubuntu for those hardcore people. There's Arch Linux, and then there's Kali Linux. Now I have my stuff pulled over to the side, but what you don't see is that on the side is the actual name. So there's the name and then these friendly names. And let's see. There we go. Figured out a way how to do it on Notepad so you could see what I was talking about. But basically, like right here, these are the actual names. And those names are what you're going to use to be able to install your Linux distribution on WSL. Okay, so now that you've seen this list, we're security researchers. Obviously, we want to install Kali Linux. Now you could do it through the command line. I like doing it through the store. So you can literally go into the Microsoft store, look up Kali Linux, and like you saw on my machine already, you just install it like it's its own app. All right, so real quick, one of the things I want to show you, which is so neat about Windows Subsystem for Linux, is the integration. So as you can see here, I've got Kali installed, and I actually have a full, in Linux, I have the file system Linux. I have all the directories pulled up on my Windows machine just as if I was in the Kali box. And the reason that's so great is, what if you download something through, let's say, your browser, right? And it's some piece of evidence or it's some piece of list or some piece of text file, for a target that you're testing on, and you need to get it into your Kali box. Well, you can literally open up your downloads folder and then just drag it and drop it into any of these directories in Kali. That's really important, is to be able to access this through the Windows File Explorer. You can copy files, you can copy payloads, you can even access notes that were made in the Linux machine while you're in your Windows environment. So this makes it just really powerful, really integrative. It's amazing. So let's hop back over into our command prompt. I got to learn how to fucking talk today. Christ. All right, we're going to hop into our command prompt, and I'm going to show you some other WSL things you can do. All right, so some quick important commands is WSL list verbose. Now, this is going to list all the different portions. I'm just going to pull this over. We'll make sure to fade that out. But this is going to list your Linux distributions you have through WSL. So you can see right here, I have Kali Linux installed. That little star means it's my default distribution. It's my main distribution. And currently it's stopped. If it wasn't stopped and I had it, pulled up in the background, like I'll go ahead and pull it up in the background. You can actually see here's Kali rolling, and there's red at code red 2. So popping back over to our Windows command prompt, if I run that command again, you can see now it says Kali Linux running. It's version 2 because we're using WSL2. Okay. Now, what I could do right here is I could type in WSL shutdown. And that shut down my Kali Linux version. Okay. All right. And then actually that command right there shuts down all the Linux machines that are running in WSL. If you want to shut down a certain machine, then you would type in WSL terminate, and then the machine name, which in our example is Kali Linux. Okay. So now the other thing too is that one way you can completely you can completely delete and remove a distribution that was already installed, right? So let's say I want to just completely get rid of Kali Linux. WSL on register, and then the machine name, Kali Linux. Now, I'm not going to do that, but that would completely uninstall and remove the machine. Because if I installed Ubuntu and I decided I no longer need this Ubuntu server, I've copied everything off of it, that's how I would delete it. Okay. Other thing that's really important with WSL is being able to back up. Okay. So in the typical realm of security, you should always ensure that your backups are being performed so that your data is not fully lost and a recovery plan is in place. So you can back up your Kali Linux machine through WSL into a tar file. So basically, if you type this command in, it'll create a .tar file in the current directory that you're in of Windows. So it'll be WSL -- export Kali, right? And it'll tell you, what options to do. So it's actually, whoops, let me just clear that out. There we go. So it's actually WSL -- export Kali, and you do -Linux and it Kali.tar. And that will actually copy and make it an actual tar file. I gotta quit saying I don't know what the fuck's going on with me today, everybody. And then, so let's say you're moving things, right? You're moving machines. You want to open, you want to take your backup and you want to open it on a new Windows computer that you just got. Well, after installing Windows Subsystem for Linux, you just do WSL -- import whatever name you want, right? So Kali, and then in quotes, where you want to store the machine, such as, D / WSL, and then the location of the tar file. Okay. And the tar file, like if it's here in, C, whoops, there we go. C users /red / and if it's the tar file, that's how you would do it. Okay. So that lets you actually import where you want to put your Kali Linux machine. Okay. Final note in WSL, real simple. You can choose which user to log in as. So if you have multiple users on your Kali Linux box or on any of your Linux machines, you just do WSL -D for the distribution, the name, which is Kali Linux, -U for the user. My user on Kali Linux is red right there. Put that in. And boom, look at that. I am in as the user red on the Kali box. Okay, so that's the basics of it. There's some other configurations and tweaks you can use to setting up like your specific Kali Linux machine. But for this video, I just wanted to show you real quick what WSL is, how to run those certain commands, and what it's capable of. And you can literally just have a Linux machine in Kali. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Jeez. There we go. Now we don't have to fade stuff out or obfuscate. So that's it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, I don't know what to tell you.